welcome once again to Macray's Keep. On tonight's snowy episode here in Wisconsin, we will be taking our now completed figure of Orem and exporting him from Blender, showing everybody how to do that step by step, uploading them into the Keep, and then we're going to kind of go over some of the features of the model lab and some of the recent changes we've made, running up to the start of the closed beta early next year. After all of that, we will be, in all likelihood, starting on our rendition of Dorian Storm, Robbie Damon's Bard from Critical Role. So here we see Orem once again in his finished form. And we will start the evening by exporting the X3D file from Blender. And we will then upload it into the Keep. So let's start with that. So the export options are right here off the file menu. And extensible 3D or X3D is our file format of choice. You can put your exported file anywhere you want. I have an actual folder for such things. It takes the name of the blend file, and that's great. We will export that. So let us switch over to Macray's Keep here. And we will begin the upload process. And here we go. Okay, so in order to upload a file, we start with the file manager, and if this window is not open, you can always open it from your GM menu, file manager. You notice that window comes back right where I left it. If I go over here and I close it here and we reopen it, again, it comes back right where you left it. I like it down here actually. But the entire site, again, for those of you who haven't seen any of this before, is Windows based. So you get a nice desktop here. This desktop image can be customizable on a campaign by campaign basis. So your game master, or you, if you're the game master, can upload the image of your choice to kind of give everybody a kind of feel for your game. And then each of the features of the site, each of the areas or pages or however you want to look at it, represented by windows. And so we want to upload a file, so the file manager window is where we're going to be at, and we are going to, you can see the no upload controls here. We're not really in a folder for uploading, but the X3D folder is where we have all of our 3D models, and you can see I have a nice selection here, and we are going to go ahead and upload our file. So you can see if I am clicking on this, you may not know that, but I am. This is disabled. The upload is disabled until you choose what type of model or figure you're going to be uploading. Character figures versus objects, chairs, chests, stones, stalactites, you name it. They're treated a little bit differently in the system, so we have to know on the front end what you're uploading. So now that we've said this is going to be a character, these upload controls have now lit up, and we can go and we can choose our file. And this is standard Windows file chooser. And you can see here, here's Orem that we just did, 7:01 p.m. And he's a big boy too, 20 meg. So this is going to take a minute to upload, but that's all right. See, the upload is in progress here. For some reason the cursor busy is not showing up. That's a little weird. I'll have to look into that. But normally your cursor will be spinning, although you can still do other things in the system. And so when this file name here clears, you get a status message down here when the upload is complete. We will then have this list will refresh, and we will have our Orem .x3d file available for us, and we will then open it up in the file manager. So you can see down here the file was uploaded. The file chooser is now cleared away, and let's scroll down. And here he is. So again, we're going to open him up in the model lab. I'm going to give you guys all the caveat here. We've been doing a lot of work in the model lab lately, so this is pre-beta software. Just to be safe, I'll say that, but it's actually pretty stable. But we're going to get this in, and I'm going to show you a couple of the things we've been doing here, and how you can quickly and easily repaint parts or all of your character if you want. Once you get it done in Blender, you get it into the system here, you can do that. Oh, hey, we got some big feet here. And for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is normal. We have to be able to support models being uploaded from anywhere, coming out of anything, not just Blender. But the kind of standard 28mm STL print figures all come into the system very large. So you can always just click on this. If you get a less than ideal view of what's going on, just click on this, and that's going to show your figure, and he's crushing the model lab right now. But we can still take a look at him. And again, all the lights down here in the actual model lab, that's why it looks like it's all below him. But we're going to go up to this context menu first, and this is the figure properties. You can see he's got a name here. He's a character type model. That's what we specified when we upload him. His scale is he's coming in just at whatever scale the model is from wherever he's coming from. And so we're going to shrink that down here in a second. We can also move the figure, and we're going to do that in a second too to align the stage with the floor properly. And then we'll get to the viewpoint position here in a second. We need to be able to sync up his eyes with his viewpoint. So when you're in a scene and you switch to his viewpoint, you're actually looking kind of from this area of the figure. Some figures are tall, some figures are short, some are leaning forward, some are leaning back, some are leaning over to the side. So we have to let you adjust where you want that actual viewpoint to be. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to scale him. And I can tell you right now that the secret number for all these figures that come out of Eldritch Foundry, that come out of Hero Forge, that come out from My Mini Factory, if they're STL files that are made for 28mm physical figures, you want to go 0.035. And just tab that over, and that's going to, all of the scaling is all locked. So all three axes are locked. So when you change one, it's going to change all of them. So we're going to reset our view here. And that looks much better. Still got some issues. You can see we get weirdness with his stage. So we're going to do this first. We're going to look at the front view, which aligns us with the floor. And we're also going to turn off this viewpoint control for now. And you can see his stage is below the floor level. And that's just how the Eldritch Foundry figures come in. The Hero Forge figures, the stage is above, but it's very easy to fix. All you have to do is change the figure position right here, and then we're going to go up and down. That's the y-axis in X3D. And so we're just going to go click, 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 click. And you can see there's light now between the stage and the floor. So we're going to back that off one, think. And then we will, let's take a look at this. All right. Looks pretty good now, much better than he did. And this looks a lot like he is in Blender. And this is with all the lights on in the model lab. By default, we have a ton of light in here so that you can get in, you can see exactly what you're doing. We'll demonstrate some options with regard to lighting here in the model lab. So if you do want to change some colors of some aspects of your model and you still want to be able to see kind of what he's going to look like, or he or she or it is going to look like in a specific kind of lighting, we'll show you how to do that too. So now the next step is let's get his viewpoint synced up. So I'm going to turn that viewpoint indicator back on, And you can see here that this is just a cone, okay? And that cone is just representing his view, the point of the cone here. And let's just just do side view here. You can see the cone here. The point of the cone is where you want it. That's where his eyes should be, and then the rest of the cone kind of indicates his field of vision. So here we need to move this up, obviously, because we want to line it up with his face. And here's where kind of this side view and this front view really come into handy here. So we want to move this up so that this circle is right in front of his face. And instead of just clicking that up one little click at a time, I'm going to cheat and go 1.1 because that's, he's pretty short. So let's just do 1.0 and see. Oh, that's still too big. That's fine. We're just going to click it down now. Okay. And then we're going to click it over a little bit. Maybe down a little bit more. And then we can kind of, that looks pretty good from that set. So we're going to look from the side now. Okay, and I can tell you that that cone is, we need it to come up a little more. And it's pretty close. And we want it to come out. If the cone is actually touching his face, then it won't look right. If we switch to his viewpoint right now, we're going to be probably inside his head. Yeah, and we absolutely are, so we don't want that. So let's go side view. Actually, let's go front view. And we're going to actually rotate the figure a little bit here too. There, straighten him out a little bit. And let's go down a little bit. No, I don't think we want to do that. All right, so let's turn this off. All right, so now let's take a look at the top down. And I'm going into this in a little more detail than probably needs to be, but I want to show you guys how it all works here. So now we're going to move this viewpoint in and out a little bit. Nope, wrong way. Okay, and let's switch into his viewpoint and see if we're in front of his face yet. Nope. So we can actually adjust it from here. Ah, that's better. So that's what I want to see. I want to be as close to his face. Click, click, click. So inside his head, just outside his head. And this is what I want to see. You can go a little further out if you want. But again, I like to keep the viewpoint as close to his head as possible without actually being in it. So, and I'm just going to do one quick just to be safe there. All right. So in the Model Lab and in any of the 3D VR areas at the Keep, controls are very simple. To rotate around, you're just left clicking and moving the mouse. Okay. If you want to pan without rotating, you hold the control key and then you can pan like this. You can always reset your view, whatever view you're on. So I'm controlling to pan around. If you want to see everything like we did when we came in and he was huge, you can do that. And this will show you everything that's in the scene completely within the window. So you saw when he was massive. If we wanted to see just how massive, you can just hit this button and then just reset the view and we're back to where we started. And again, like I said, if you want to see what he's going to see, just switch into his viewpoint. So from here, we've got him all aligned. We've got him scaled. We've got him rotated so he's looking in the right direction. It's perfectly aligned with our viewpoint. And so now we're going to turn our viewpoint indicator off so we can see him. And just a couple other things here real quick. If for some reason you want to be able to not see the walls and the ceiling, you can turn everything off here and you can just get him on a plane. This is nice if you want to take a snapshot of him, which I do for all of my 2D tokens. So I can go like this and we can zoom in. We can get right here, and then you can just click this camera icon and that takes a snapshot, and then what you do is you just click the download button. You can download it, and I'll just pop this up so you guys can see it. Oh, you won't be able to see it because I'm not in monitor capture, but really just everything inside the border here, that's what you get. If you want to bring it into Photoshop and do what you want to do with it, you're all good to go. Now, for the lighting, I'm going to turn this stuff back on. In the model lab, like I said, we have the lights turned up so that when you are looking at your figure, you're seeing actual colors without any sort of effect of anything. You're seeing all the reflectivity on anything. You can see on these little gray balls here that they're reflecting light. There's some metallic on there. We left some metallic on these raised portions of his vest, the pommel of his sword, all that kind of stuff. So like I said, by default, the lights are up. If you want to turn the lights down a little bit, you can certainly do that by changing the intensities. You can also change the radius of the lights. And if you're wondering, there's a light in the center of each wall, all four, all around. So no matter where you are, you kind of get good light on what you're looking at. You can also change the color if you want to see what he's going to look like in a variety of different lighting environments. So we've got some red light here, and you can just drag this around and you can kind of see, you know, what he's going to look like given if he's going into, you know, you're going to have him in a sort of sewer kind of environment, and you want to see how he's going to look with a green cast or something like that, then you can also use the model lab lighting to do all of that stuff. Now, that's pretty much all for the lighting and for actually just kind of adjusting and getting the figure ready to get into an actual scene, which we haven't seen yet, well, at least not tonight, and we're going to do that in a minute. But the really cool part of the model lab, and I'm going to go and I'm going to turn some lights back up here just so we can kind of see what's going on. So as I mentioned, when we were in Blender yesterday and a little today, we went through and we selected out each little part and piece of this model, and then we assigned it a material or a color. And now that we've done that, and we've brought them into the keep, we can go to the model components menu here. And you may or may not remember the list from Blender, but it looked just like this. It looked a little different, but the contents of the list were the same. So right now we have our base color chosen, which we don't really have anywhere, but this would choose the stage, and this is his skin. You can see it changes the diffuse color here. So anything that you want to change on him, you can. So if you're like, oh well, I want to change his skin tone, you can just bring this up, and you can change his skin tone, pasty or whatever, or you can, you know, whoa, hey, there you go. Anything you want to do. And that goes for, again, and then you've got reset controls here. So if you want to just undo that and go back to where you were, that's fine. Things like, oh yeah, I don't like how the sword turned out. So let's go find his sword here. And we've got sword blade leaves. So let's say we wanted to, or sword blade stems, let's say we wanted to darken those up a little bit. Not a problem, just darken those, and you can see how that changes right on the figure, right the way we're doing it. Or if you wanted to, if you look at the sword blade inset here, which is this darker gray area here, we can do things like turn up the shininess, or we can create, maybe lighten that up a little bit or darken it, make it black. Or we could do something, we can change it to a different color. Um, or you can even do something super cool, which is called an emissive color. An emissive color is basically the everything that you see here in the that has a diffuse color set. Diffuse color is the color that is reflected by external light sources. Um, Emissive color does not require any external light sources to be seen. And so what that basically gives you is a glowing effect. So if we want to have the inset of the sword blade here glow a green like this, say, oh, that's kind of cool. It's kind of a green inset there. But what happens, what's really cool, if we go in here and we turn our lights down again, or if we go to black lights, you can see that you can still see that. No matter what the lighting condition is, it doesn't need any light to be seen. So you can have cool effects like glowing eyes or magic swords or a staff or a wand or something like that, that is in effect glowing. So no matter how dark the light is or what color the light is, you're always going to see that because it's not relying on the external light source for the type of color and effect you see. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about on yesterday's stream. If you guys are watching the videos in order, it's obviously the video prior to this. When you're in Blender and you're doing your segmentation, you're painting for the first time, you want to be nice and descriptive on what you're doing here. So we've got eyebrows, sclera, iris, pupil. So if we want to change his eye color, you can see it's blue. So let's whoa. Movement, when you're zoomed in, movement is very, very touchy. So if we want to give him more of a green eyes, that's fine. We can do that, kind of hazel, and we maybe darken those up a little bit for brown. So however you want to do these things, you want to change his lip color, his hair color, however it is, whatever it is you want to do. Again, you just choose whatever you want to do and make the change. So if you want, for instance, we want to change all of these rivets. So here's the rivets. We don't want them to be this silver. We want them to be a nice bright gold that's got some specularity to it and some shininess, so that when we're going around here, we can kind of see that they're metal. We can do the same thing again with transparency as well. Anything you want to make transparent, either a little or a lot, you can do that too. As I mentioned yesterday, transparency is computationally expensive. So I would use it sparingly. If you need to do it, you need to use it. Hey, that's fantastic. Go for it. But be sparing with it, or it's going to, it's going to add some size and some intensity to your models. And down here, if you're done, again, like I said, you can undo individual changes if you want to, just by clicking here and here. If you want to undo all the changes that you've been working on, you just click that, and then your model is completely back to where it started. If you want to save the changes and commit those to the actual file that we just uploaded, you can click the save button. I'm not going to do that right now. Normally the workflow that I would recommend with that would be to upload a second copy, and then if you want multiple versions, different colors, all the time, if you're not just changing something for a certain situation, or you want to make sure that you have the original, that's fine. Just upload another copy of it, make sure it has a different file name. We'll probably have a copy feature in the file manager. We'll have to see how that goes. And But in any case, you can always upload a second copy of it, and then you can have one that's colored a certain way, one that's colored another way, and or as many as you can store. So, but that's very exciting for us because it allows a great deal of flexibility for people and their figures without having to go back into Blender and then do the entire export and all that kind of stuff. You can always make great changes. Basically, anything you can do in Blender, plus the emissive color, the glowing color, is not something we can set in Blender. At least I'm not sure how to do it, but it's probably best you do it in here anyway. And so we can do that. What else in the model lab? You can see this light bulb up here. If ever you're working in here and you have the lights kind of turned down, or you're doing something like that, and you want to say, oh, I really want to see something, without respect to the light. Whatever viewpoint that you're in, you can turn on what's called the headlight, and basically that illuminates the model as if it was fully lit, regardless of the light sources in the scene. So it's always kind of a handy way to say, oh, okay, this is what he's going to look like in, kind of dim lighting. But oh yeah, what's this color here? I want to take a look, and then you can get in and you can say, okay, this is exactly what that is. Okay, great. You can turn that back off if you want. Generally, with the default light settings in the model lab, you don't have to rely on the headlight, but it's there again just for whatever if there is a need for you that you want to use it. So that's basically where we're at with the model lab. Once your figure is again rotated properly, scaled properly, you've got your viewpoint set up so that it's right where you want it. I'm actually going to raise this a little bit. Dink, dink. And again, this is not super critical, but I just like to make sure it's aligned as close as possible. Now we are ready to get him into a scene with his cohorts, and we'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. So the first thing we need to do is you need to have a character created for it, and we're going to open this up. This is the character record. And I haven't created a 2D snapshot. That involves some Photoshop and some copy pasting. I'm not going to subject you guys to that. Next time we come in, we'll have this ready and we'll have him all set there. But you just have to make sure that if you want to use an actual 3D figure, you select from the list of figures. Interesting. And we're going to save that. And now we're going to open a scene. We have our eerie cave scene here where we have our critical role characters fighting a couple of bad guys. And we are going to let this load up. Again, we've got several figures here that are in the, well, several that are about 10 megabytes, and then we've got 2 or 3 that are 20 megabytes. So it takes just a second to load, but that's fine. You can see that progress meter is already gone, and we're already good to go. So we're going to switch to the top-down view, and here in scene here, we might as well go over these controls real quick. This is a scene context menu. It can change the size of the actual map. I'm going to switch to top-down view for this, and you can see that this graphic has a grid on it, and it's synced up to the dimensions of the room, of the scene, I should say. We can have fog controls here, so if we want to bring in a little fog, a little mist, we can do that. and that basically affects the lighting. You can also change the color of the fog. So if you want to have kind of a sickly green or red, it depends on what you're doing. But for right now, we're going to turn the fog off so everybody can see a little bit better. The DM light is just lighting for the DM who's working on it right now. Again, players would not see the entire map like this. They would only see the lit areas unless the DM has turned the DM light on for everybody. There will be circumstances where you want that, and there will be circumstances where you don't want players to see anything that's not lit. And you can go both ways with that, and that's fine. But you can change intensities and colors and all that kind of stuff in the radius of the DM light. The background colors in the cube map I'm not going to go into right now. That just really affects kind of the sky dome, and I can show you guys some scenes that use that on another video or another stream. Here again, this will lock and unlock all the objects in the scene, so that if you're grabbing an object like this, we still want to, I don't want to be moving this around when we're in an encounter. We're doing that. If I'm authoring, yeah, then I unlock everything and I can drag things around right where I want them. But when everything is locked, obviously characters are not, they can always move. Then it doesn't matter where you grab in the scene. You're not going to grab and move something that when you're intending on moving the scene around. So when you are positioning characters, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So again, if you've got a scene like this and you want to focus in on a certain character, you can always do that by going here. And if we want to focus in on fresh cut grass, it'll take you right. And this is always looking down. The reason we do that is because sometimes there will be objects in the way if we're looking from the side. But this will allow you to get to his context menu. You can change his lighting options. You can see positioning information. You can magnetize him, turn his light on and off, turn his rotational controls off, or scale him in scene. Not to be confused with the scaling that happens in the model lab. That is a baseline scale. And then if you want for some transient reason to scale one of the figures for a spell effect or something else, you can do that in scene as well, and that is tracked differently. The same works for objects. If you want to focus in on a certain object, you can do that, and then that will allow you again to give you a context menu. Again, objects also can have light sources. So if you have a glowing pool or even something as mundane as a lantern or a candle, you may want to turn an actual light source on for that, and that's fine. These are the light options. This is the toggle to turn it on and off. And again, this is magnetized. If it's not magnetized and you're moving it around, you want to drop it to the floor, this will do that. This changes, again, turns on the rotation controls. Even objects have rotational controls. You can see they're right here. Turn those off. You can scale objects larger and smaller. That's great for things like the cave, where you can have several of the same models, but then like stalactites or boulders or something, and then change their size individually, and to give you kind of more options, more variety that way. Again, here's the lock. You saw over here, we can lock and unlock everything in the scene over here. This is to lock and unlock individual items from dragging. And then this simply lets you remove that object from the scene. The camera works just like in the in the model lab. So if we want to take a picture of something for whatever reason, to a social media post or something like that, you can get your camera all squared away right where you want it, and then again just click the camera, click the download, and you're good to go. Also, like the model lab, if you want to see everything that's in the scene, no matter what, this will zoom out to a point where everything that's in the scene is visible in the frame. And you can still zoom and move around from there. That's fine. It's all of that is available to you. This resets whatever viewpoint you're currently on. So we're in the top-down viewpoint. So if you want to reset that, you can. And then this changes the viewpoint. Again, we have a front view like in the model lab. Again, we can't see the characters here because we got some cave in our way, but we can easily just come up and tilt down a little bit and then get a view from right here. And the same works for the front view. I'm sorry, that is the front view. For the side view, and again, we can tilt, we can zoom, and we can do all that kind of stuff. 2D mode. If you're not really playing with figures, if you're just playing with the 2D tokens that are the default, and again, you saw that here. I'll show you what, like in Imogen's, you can see her figure here. I just took a snap of it using the camera icon up here and just did a little Photoshop so it fits within our token template. But you can play, if you can certainly play with 2D tokens. They lay flat down on the map. And if that's the case, it's recommended to use 2D mode. And in 2D mode, there's no, I'm clicking and grabbing, there's no tilting or rotating. All you can do is move in a 2D fashion. And that can be very nice. If you're running a game, like I said, not everybody has 3D figures, and you want to use 2D tokens, and you want to just use it kind of like some of the other 2D based systems that are out there. You can certainly do that. And again, we just lock it in so that it's not quite as, if you're not using the 3D stuff, why do you want it? You don't want to be doing all of this stuff when you just got your 2D tokens. It just makes it a little bit easier. Excuse me 1 second. Thank you. Where were we? And then finally on the viewpoint menu, again, you saw in the model lab, we were aligning a viewpoint to the figure. Remember, when a figure is uploaded to the site, we have no way of knowing how big it is, how tall it is. Like I said, if it's leaning like this, if it's leaning forward like this, we have, if it's a dragon, the viewpoint's going to be much higher than it is for a halfling. So we have to let you adjust the position of that so that when you, no matter who it is, when you switch to their viewpoint, you can see. So we'll switch over to the Mind Flayer's viewpoint here. I'll show you what that looks like. You can see his skull staff is, he's holding it in front of his face, so you actually see that. We can switch over to Imogen's point of view now. And we can see again the Mind Flayer over there. Oh, and there's Laudna. So let's see what she's seeing. Oh, there you go. And then once you're in one of these views, then you can go into what's called walk mode, where a left click will walk you forward, a right click will move you back, and then you can actually walk around the scene. And then this would also affect if you're in VR. This is exactly how it would work when you're in VR. We're working on syncing this walk motion with movement of the figures. No promises on when that's going to happen, but that's kind of like the ultimate goal as far as the character viewpoint goes. But for the time being, you can switch into, and then if you just reset, that's fine. We can go see what Ashton's seeing here. And you get the idea. But whatever viewpoint you prefer, it's pretty much available to you. And again, with all the lighting and the fog options, rotational controls, you can run an encounter just like you would around another, just in a 2D service or on a tabletop. Here we've got total 3D and also VR ready. So give or take hardware. And we'll be coming out with some hardware compatibility lists and which headsets are compatible, which ones work a little bit better, and what they take to get them working. So we'll stay tuned for that, and we'll be working on that as soon as we can. So let's bring in Orem and get him into the fight here. As I've mentioned before, I like to go into top-down view mode when I bring in a character or when I'm moving characters. It just makes things a little bit easier to see. If you're in kind of an isometric view and you want to move a character in 3D space, remember you're working with a 2D pointing device in your mouse. It only can do this. And then you're also working with a 2D display in your monitor. So for me, it just makes a lot more sense that when I'm going to be moving characters around, I like to be in 2D mode, and then I zoom in or out as need be, and that works best. When you add a character to a scene, right now the default is to be at the origin, which is the top left of your map when you're looking down at it. So we will click on this icon here. You can see these icons are green for the characters that are in the scene right now, and they're gray for characters that are not in the scene. So we're going to take Orem and we're going to just click him. And you can see you get the loading indicator up here in the corner. And again, we've got, here he is. I'm just going to grab him and bring him right over here. Let's see, he's going to be sneaking up on this side of all the bad guys. So let's get down here and see. And again, at this point, either the game master can rotate him or the player can do that. And again, it's a simple right click, turn the rotational controls on, rotate him how you want him, and there you go. So let's switch into his viewpoint. There we go. And it's just that easy. So the odds are much more even now. Next will be Dorian Storm, that's right. I was going to say Storm Rider, Stormcaller. Dorian Storm. We're going to start working on him in just a second. But again, wanted to show you some behind the scenes here in the Model Lab. We're pretty excited about some of the stuff that's going on there. And then see how a scene works and how all the various controls, different things that you can do. Again, a couple things we didn't touch on. If you want to add a new object to the scene, you can do that right here. And then that just brings up all of your 3D objects that you can bring in. Also here you can load a blank scene. Here you can load one of your other scenes. And then this innocuous little power button over here, this is really where all the magic happens from the multi-user standpoint. This dungeon door here is always not active for players unless the game master turns on the game room. You can see it even turned on for me now. So anybody who is connected to the system or connects once this is on, then this icon for them will light up and they can click and join in. Any characters in the scene that they are the controller of, then they can control. They can move them, they can rotate them, they can change the light source for them, all the normal context menu stuff. That's how that works, and then at that point you're just ready to go. But yeah, this is really kind of, it's, I guess, the difference between kind of authoring mode and play mode, if you will. If you want to be in the game room, in the pocket gaming dimension, and doing something as a game master, you don't want players randomly popping in on you. Generally, you just leave it turned off. When you're ready to play, your game session starts or a little bit before, you turn it on, make sure as everyone comes in, they can get in, they're controlling their characters, and you're good to go. You're ready to play. And we'll get into more of this, the functionality of this roster, different things you can do with seeing character information, again, menus as well. We've got an initiative menu here where you can also get at the full Monty of all your character abilities and everything like that. You can always see every part of your character from this menu here. Again, you get some other recent role stuff and your favorite roles, so they don't have to keep typing the same thing in over and over again. And of course, the fate generator, which is the dice roller. But all of that for another time, and also we'll go into all the different menu options, whether you're a game master or player. We'll do those in another stream as well, and show you basically how the whole site works. But basically, a game master creates a space, a campaign, and then anyone who is accepted into the game as a participant can get into this space, and they will have full access to whatever options that their level of participation, be it game master, assistant game master, because there can be multiple game masters for a campaign. And then there are players, and then there are lurkers, who are people that can kind of read-only mode. You can see some stuff, follow along with the game without actually being an active participant. But it is a different level of participation, and it is a way for a lot more people to kind of feel part of the game without actually being players or game masters. So let's move back then to Blender. And now, again, now that we're done with Orem, we are going to import our Dorian Storm figure that we got from Eldritch Foundry. And this guy, the figure is super cool, but he didn't come with all of the options that I wanted. And so we are going to, at some point, probably not tonight, but at some point we are going to do some extra blenderage to do some additional augmentation on him. I'll talk to you about it, what that is, as soon as we get him in here. So for those of you who weren't watching a couple of nights ago or haven't seen the video, from the file menu, we choose import. And this is once you get your .stl file from wherever you get it. For a lot of reasons that I went into last night on the last video, I prefer Eldritch Foundry, but Hero Forge and many others work just fine. An STL file is an STL file is an STL file, generally speaking. And then you can just import that from wherever it is on your system that you keep these things. Excuse me, I'm going to get while this is importing. And again, here you can see, even in Blender, when your first import of the STL file, it's huge. So that's not just a part of the keep thing. So, and you could scale it in here. There are scaling controls here to do that. I prefer to just do all of my any kind of rotation or scaling or any of that sort of stuff in one spot, and so I just do it in the keep as opposed to doing it in here. So I'm not sure how many have seen the original art on belleoflosssouls.net. This is a pretty good rendition based on that art. He is obviously missing his lute. I get lute. Is that what that is? Or mirror or mandolin? I don't know. But he's missing his musical instrument. I do have him posed so that if we, when we find one, and we're going to try and find one at some point, or I'm going to try and find one and get it arranged in here, blend in Blender fashion. It shouldn't be too hard. The other thing that I want to do that I could not do right out of the box is he's got in the art, he's got winged boots. And I'm not too worried about matching the original artwork exactly. That's just not practical when we don't have full control over creating the figure. However, there are a couple of things on some of these figures that I think are important, and the winged boots stand out so much that I think we're going to try and find some wings to blenderitize onto his boots. But before we do any of that, we are going to go into edit mode. This is kind of our standard get the model ready for what I call segmentation or painting, if you will. I also change this workspace here a little bit because we don't need much up here. And there we go. So we have gone into edit mode, and you can see that by this highlight, he is selected. But there's three modes of selection here. One is vertex, which are the points at the intersection of all the lines. And if you look real close here, you can see that there are little dots at each intersection here. And those are vertices. We don't want to select by vertice. The other way to select, the second way, is by edge. And an edge is just the lines. Those are edges. And the third way is what we're after, and that is face select. You can see everything is now still orange, still selected, but it's the faces that are selected. So, and we don't want it all selected right now anyway. So we're going to go to the select menu and we're going to go select none. So this is our figure. Kind of bare metal, to use a computer term, if you will. And the first thing that we need to do is set what I call the base color. It's it looks gray right now, and it is gray, but it has nothing really assigned to it. This is just Blender picking its default so that we can see it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a material slot. There's the slot. We're going to add a new material to it. We're going to call that, I usually just call it the base color. Not to be misconstrued or mistaken with the stage, which is the term that we use for the little the disc that the character is standing on. And then whenever we pick colors, we have to switch to use shader nodes. It's a more basic way of coloring, and it's what it's the only things that will come out into X3D when we finally do our export. And I'm just going to size this to match kind of my video square here. Alrighty. All right, so we don't have access to a lot in the way of color, but the good news is we don't need much. This is the color chooser. We'll be back here in a second. The metallic slider has no effect on us. Whatever, you can set it here. It will show effects in Blender here, but when we export to X3D, this does not come along. The same with the roughness. this does not come along. Although most of the time in Blender, I will turn the roughness up. You'll see me slide that over. It just makes things easier to see if the light in the Blender viewport is not reflecting off various areas of your model, and turning the roughness up will keep that from happening. So it's just a visual aid inside of Blender. The specularity controls shininess. So generally, if something is wet, like eyes or lips or something, I have a little bit of specularity. If something is metallic, then I'll turn the specularity up much further. And that gives us, once we get into X3D, the X3D format, that gives us kind of a shiny or metallic-ish or a gem type or glass type surface. But for the base color, we're going to turn that all the way down. And then usually what I do for the base color is I pick something dark and I just keep it gray. And the reason I do that instead of leaving it that light gray or white is when you start selecting areas of the model, the selection shows up much nicer on a dark color that's not reflecting anything. So that's why I do that. So now we have our model. We've got our select mode as faces. We're in edit. We've got a base color set, and I'm going to save this. And we are good to go. So we're going to do some painting here tonight, and then on the next stream, probably tomorrow, we will. I'll see what I can come up with for some winged boots and some sort of mandolin or like instrument that he can be playing, so that we're as true to the original art as we can be. So I am going to start, because his skin is such a cool blue color, we're going to start with his skin. And again, for those of you who've seen this before, I'm being a little repetitive, but for those of you who haven't, the one main reason that I choose Eldritch Foundry, that's eldritch-foundry.com, over other sources is because of the way they build their models. Their file sizes are a little larger, but when you select something like the skin or the hair or the eyes, that's an actual physical chunk of the model, as opposed to having the model just be kind of one skin that goes over the entire thing, although that's kind of what it looks like here. But what that allows us to do is to just select the teeny tiniest part of anything, and then using this great command called select linked, or Control L, which I'll be using many times tonight, you can see it immediately selects his entire face, and really his entire head. If we went inside his hair, you would see that his skull there is selected, because his head is one contiguous thing. So we'll show you what that looks like. If we go into his head here, pop through there, and there's his skull. Even on the inside of his hair is still selected, because it's one contiguous mesh, if you will, and it's not the entire body. So it allows us to select along the eyes here, and along the eyebrows, and along the hairline, and along the shirt, and all of that, without having to go click, 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 and select each little thing along those lines. That saves an insane amount of time. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab part of the ear, and we're going to Control L that. And then we're going to do part of this ear, and we're going to Control L that. Then we are going to grab his neck, which, watch this, just the smallest little bit there, and we're going to pull it here. And you're going to see we're going to get his hands and any other skin that's exposed. Control L, and boom, there you go. Don't worry about this kind of showing through his clothes. We can, that's kind of a Blender thing, and we'll take care of that as we have to. But what this allowed us to do here is select his entire skin with just a couple of clicks. We didn't have to go in and and see and click all along these edges, and it's a very time-consuming process. What we did here in that 10 seconds of clicking probably saved us probably an hour at least, and more if you're not new to Blender, not familiar with the controls and things like that. What this looks like, I'll show you another kind of view of this. In the viewport, we're looking at in solid mode, but we can go to wireframe mode, and this is going to kind of give us the X-ray view. And you can still kind of see his clothes and everything here, but you can see what's selected, and that's his entire body, even down inside the boots. His feet are actually there. They're covered by boot, but they're there and they're selected. And the same with everything else. He is all selected, and you can see his skull inside the hair like we showed before. But this kind of gives you a view of what's going on behind the scenes. In other models that you get from other sources, if you would do the click once and Control L, it would simply select the entire surface of the model. And while that can have its uses, it does not help us to paint. If we want to assign a color to his skin, we can't have the entire thing selected. That defeats the purpose. So we are going to create a slot, and we're going to call it skin. Go into nodes, and I don't want his skin to be shiny. And so what we need to do is we need to have this kind of sky blue skin. I don't think it's that dark, because he is an air genasi, I believe. So let's assign this. Let's deselect so we can get a better view. And I think we need to be a little brighter, not quite so dark. Well, that's going to be good. And again, you saw earlier in tonight's stream or earlier in the video, if you're watching after the fact, once we get him, again, anytime we're in Blender here, we can always just come over. Now that we've got his skin assigned to its own slot or its own segment, if you will, we can come in and we can change this color at any time, toot sweet, very easily. And as you saw earlier, even once we get this figure completely done in Blender and into the keep, we can still, if we want to tweak his skin color a little bit more, we can certainly do that. So we're going to leave it like that. That's close enough for now. Now we're going to do, I think we're going to do his eyes. And actually, boy, he's not got much in the way of white in his eyes. This is going to be a little challenging here. Actually, I think I might want this even a little bit lighter. Okay. So, so to select things, I usually go over this, and my apologies for those of you who have heard me go over this a number of times. We can select things in addition to the super cool Control L to select linked. We got to select something to start with, and usually it's the circle selector, which you can just hit the C on your keyboard, and then you get this circle, and you can mouse wheel to make it bigger or smaller. And then just a simple left click will select whatever you're looking at. And I'm going to select a chunk of each of these eyes. If for some reason you want to deselect something, you can click the center button or the mouse wheel button if that's what you got, and you can just deselect, and that's fine. Again, in addition to all the options in here, not all of which are super useful, but they all have their purposes here and there. In addition to the circle selector, you can do the box selector. And again, this is just kind of the typical drag and select. So we're going to select none. And then we'll also show you At some point, the super cool select more, select less. Once you select part of something, you can just do Control plus or Control minus to expand or contract that selection. In certain circumstances, that can be very useful. So we're gonna grab part of the eyes, and it doesn't matter what I'm grabbing here because I am gonna just do Control L, and it's gonna select the entire eyeball because we could pop into a skull and show you. I've done it in several videos, but this eyeball is literally a sphere. And that's why when we select it, it doesn't select anything else. Again, other figures from other providers, you can't do this. You have to go into, and I'm going to show you for those of you who haven't seen it. You just got to do the manual select mode where you're going and you're going, yeah, this and this and this and this and oh, I got too much there. I overspray, clean that up, and go this and this and this and this. Okay, it's not the end of the world, and we do it all the time for other areas. That's fine. But compared to this and Control L, bang, again, you know, even just on the eyes here, we just save 15 minutes of our lives, and it's not even close. It's just awesome. So this is going to be the sclera. And it looks like Mr. Storm here does not have a white sclera. It's close to white, but it looks like, boy, he's got a light blue sclera, a slightly darker blue iris, and then like, I don't even know if he's got pupils. Well, we're going to have to see here. Okay, so eyeballs are white, are wet a little bit, so I'm going to leave a little specularity in there. And then we are going to go again into our bluish area here. But this, I want it to stay very light blue because this is the sclera and should be close to white. All right. And now we're going to do the iris. And now we get into the point where we can't just do a Control L or something like that because we're selecting part of an actual object. The nice thing is that the eyeballs have one of the poles, if you will, directed out right where his pupil and iris would be. So it makes using the circle selector quite a treat because we can just do this and we get a perfect circular selection there. And we're going to move over here and we're going to do the same thing here. And you can change the size of the iris and the pupil that you like in your figures depending on the look you want. This is where I'm going with him. Oops. And we'll see how it goes. So this is going to be the iris. And again, remember descriptive names here because these are the names that you assign here are going to be the names that you see in the list of selectable or colorable components or segments or whatever you want to call them once you're in the keep. And when we saw it, we were changing eye color for Orm. You know, we want to know what the iris is, we want to know what the pupil is, we want to know all that stuff. So nice descriptive names here. And that's great. So again, I'm going to leave still in the eye. I'm going to leave a little specularity there. And again, the roughness is just for in Blender here. That does not translate out. But so you'll generally see me turn that up, but that's fine. And then here we're going to do the same kind of blue. This is going to be darker, but not dark like a lot of irises that we've seen. Let's see how that looks. That's pretty cool. And I don't know. I just don't know. I am going to create pupils. I'm going to create them very small. And we can always change the pupil color to match the iris color if we want. If we don't create pupils now, we lose that option down the road if we want to have actual visible pupils. So that's the reason I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to create pupils. And at this point, normally I just slam black for the pupils, but for him, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to make it very, very dark blue. All right. And now at some point, if we want the pupil to match the iris and we don't want to see it at all, we can certainly do that. Um, but so if we wanted to say, do this, grab our eyedropper here, and we're going to match this iris color. So now you can see it looks like we have no pupils, but we still do have them, and we can select them and make them darker or do whatever we want with them after the fact if we want. So I think it's important to define them, even if you're not going to have them stand out with their own color right now. We've done a bunch of stuff, so I think it's time to save. All right, so he's got some interesting hair in this art, and I think we're just going to move right into the hair here. And this should be interesting. I'm not sure how the model's going to handle this. So let's just do this and see what we get. Oh, excellent. I love it. Because he's got this top area and he's got the bun or the knot, and then he's got all three of them are kind of different colors. And for us to be able to select these it's really nice. So this is really just almost a black color if I'm going by the the art here. So we're going to do hair, top, front, front, front. Not shiny hair. Some people might have shiny hair, but I don't think we're going to have him have shiny hair. Tends to look plasticky if you have shiny hair, so I generally don't like that. And then again, we might go kind of a really dark purple, almost black. I'm not sure if there's a touch of purple, but the top knot or the bun back there definitely is purple. So I think we're gonna make this super dark, almost black. Okay, and let's go to the bun-ish thing type and Control L that. Excellent. And so this is just a flat out dark purple. Not this darker purple, but dark purple. So this is going to be, well, hair bun. Maybe a little darker. Don't want it to stand out quite so much. Now, the hair back here, this is going to be, in the picture, it's got a bit of a gradient. It starts out kind of a light purple and then fades down to white. That's a rough one for us because of what we're restricted to and where our lines are and what we can do. Doing smooth fades like that outside of the model doing it for us is very tricky. Actually, it's not tricky, it's basically impossible. But we are just talking about a D&D figure here, so so we're not going to worry too much about it. We're going to pick a light kind of purplish color here. And we're going to go with that. And you can see his hair comes all the way down under his cape. You can see there's a little popping through here. Again, you get some of these anomalies with the models. Don't sweat it. It is what it is. When you're zoomed out and you saw what these look like, when we're in the keep with lighting and, when they're this big, you're not going to see any of this stuff. But in Blender, you're zooming in, you're all the gory details are available there. So what we're going to do with this, I think, is this is going to be hair back as opposed to his back hair, which I'm guessing he doesn't have any. And this we're going to have kind of a, I guess, lightish purplish. We'll have to see it. This is too pink. I think that's better. And we can look at perhaps doing some highlights on this or trying to do some sort of fade on the way down. Not going to go crazy on that or spend a lot of time on that right now. But it's something that we can potentially spend some time on. So let's save this. All right. Well, let's get the stage out of the way, and I'm just gonna, for those of you who haven't seen this before, this stage is actually two meshes put together. This top disc and then this kind of bottom disc that's flared out. So if you just select a little bit of each of them, Control L, you get the whole thing. Again, even that over other figures where you've got to select around the feet and all of that, I can't even begin to tell you the difference in time saving. It's awesome. I've done my share of Hero Forge figures, and I'm sure I'll do more. But when I have the option to use one of the Eldritch Foundry figures, I definitely do it. Oops, didn't want to do that yet. So my typical stand is just black. Again, you can do a stand any which way you want, or a stage rather. I know that all of the Eldritch Foundry included, Hero Forge, they have different options for, you can have cobblestones and wood, and you can have actual objects on there. Hey, that's all fantastic. I keep it simple, but that's just a personal preference. You guys do what you want, and if you've got stuff on your stage, go ahead and paint it up, just like we're doing with the rest of the figure. No worries whatsoever. All right. I know it looks a little weird. If you go into object mode, we get rid of the mesh there. Yeah, I'm digging it. I like it a lot so far. So we're going to have some interesting choices with regard to his cape because, and I'll show you here, we can select the cape. Oops, we got to be in edit mode to do selecting. Yeah, and if you're ever wondering why you're clicking and nothing is happening, make sure you're in edit mode and make sure that you're selecting faces. That's very important. Otherwise, your Blender is not going to work the way you think it's going to work, and it's not going to work certainly the way you want it to work. So if we do this and we do Control L, we're going to get the whole thing, and that's fine. But I definitely want to have the inside of the cape be the kind of goldish color and the outside be purple as is shown in the artwork. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to have to do some manual work, and that's fine. We are going to, because painting on the inside of the cape is a big pain in the butt because obviously his body's right there. So if we're in here and we're trying to select all this stuff in here, it's a lot more of a job when you've got to worry about bumping into this and all that. So we are going to set his cape. Again, I think I'm going to move this. You can move your slots around here. Sorry, I like to keep kind of the things about the actual figure, the person, the character together, and then kind of things that are more, mechanical or just kind of logistical to themselves. So this we're going to, it's kind of a goldish color that's, and it's got a kind of a gradient in there. It goes from almost an orangish to a goldish goldish. But we're going to do, let's see here, cape interior. Again, this is cloth ostensibly, and unless it's silk or satin, I don't want any specularity. Then we're going to kind of go to a goldish color. Again, I want it to be, that's kind of, a little too orange. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Let's assign that. All right. So now what we need to do is we need to grab the outside of the cape. And we'll probably grab the outside and this bottom kind of hem. Whoop, don't want to do that yet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start selecting on the outside here. And this is kind of the old school. This is the way you have to do everything with a non-Eldritch Foundry figure. And is that the end of the world? It is not. But it, again, as you're going to see here, it is definitely more time consuming than just clicking Control L. Should have this big. I think I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to run right up the edge here. Again, you see over here, I've got cape, but nothing behind it. So I can do kind of the cheater method. I don't have to worry about what's out here, but I can get down here and then the stage is down there. So I got to be a little more careful. Otherwise, we'll get some overspray. And overspray is not the end of the world. Remember, clicking your center mouse button or your mouse wheel button will take care of that. And again, we'll get this edge here. And I'm not sure. We may do that the same color as the back. And we may have a third color involved in that. We'll see. But for right now, I'm just going to select just the flat out back of the cape. Again, I can select all this. Then as I get kind of closer to civilization here and I have more things to worry about overspray, I like to zoom in a little bit. All right. And you can see here we got some weird transition from the cape to his shirt. And we can handle this a couple of ways. We can leave it and just respect the model, or we've got a nice clean line here that even though this is not really his cape, we could run this up to here if we want to. And in this case, because it looks like somebody took a big bite out of this, I think we're going to try that and see. I think we're going to do it like that. Whoa. I don't know what that is right there, so I'm not going to grab it just yet. Something poking through there, but we'll figure it out. Let's come up here and finish this. And this I am going to go through because it's kind of where the, well, I don't know, maybe we will just grab it. I think it'll, again, stay with this line here. And then see this surface here turns into the actual edge of the cloak here. And so we're going to do that. We might do that the same color, or we might do it another color, but I don't really have to worry about selecting it just yet. Again, wherever I have blank background behind me, I can go crazy without having to worry about any kind of overspray or anything. But again, not to beat a dead horse. Sorry for you horse lovers, you know what I mean. But this process, well, fine, is and oftentimes necessary, is just much more time consuming than what we were doing for a lot of the other parts of the model. So again, I'm not trying to shill for Eldritch Foundry. What I want, what I'm more concerned about is that for people who want to paint figures and use them in the keep, I want their experience to be as, efficient, I guess, as is possible. And it's just when you can do that with a lot of the figure, it really does make it quite a bit more efficient. So what is this? This looks like it's part of his something or other popping through, and we're just going to whoosh, paint right over that. And he's got some hair popping out here. We're going to grab that too. Again, oftentimes my rule of thumb is to honor the model, paint what is really what. But in this case, it's clear that the hair is poking through the cloak, and that's not a thing. So, and we got some weirdness here. I'm not going to worry too much about that. It's relatively minor. And where his hair and his cloak kind of meet, even in the real world, it can be a little fuzzy on, hair comes over here and goes under there. And so again, try not to worry over much about details like that. Again, once they're done and scaled appropriately, you probably won't notice it. Certainly no one who's been zoomed in and working on a model at this level is going to ever notice it. They just won't. So again, we've got some nice areas here where I can be a little freer with my selection. And we got some more funny business over here. We'll take a look at that. I want to finish coming up and around here. And also, don't judge these models too harshly. Remember a couple of things. Number one, we're really giving it the microscope treatment, quite literally. And also two, the source of what we're working on right now is an STL file, and that is not made for what we're doing. STL files are made for stereolithography, or otherwise known as 3D printing, for those of you who have such hardware or access to it. So yeah, It's easy to say, oh yeah, you know, why is this model like this? Why don't they do it better? Honestly, it's again irrelevant for their purposes. Um, because they're producing a product for 3D printing, not for putting it under the blender microscope and doing what we're doing. And for us, it's really no big deal, even in the physical world of miniatures. And I've painted, certainly not as many as some people, but I've painted my share of minis. I've worked with my share of painted minis. Um, and I can tell you, physical miniatures in the real world certainly have plenty of their own uh, um, idiosyncrasies, if you will, with the actual model itself. And when you're sitting around your table and your characters are fighting for their lives, um, nobody's looking at the paint job, nobody's looking at the model and looking for anomalies or what have you. People are enjoying the game, and that's what it's all about. And that's what we're trying to do here. Get this to a point where you can have cool painted figures in a cool 3D or VR scene, but it's still all about the game. The best figures, the best maps, the best software, doesn't really mean anything if you don't have a good game. So never lose focus on what's really important. Things like this, you see these tiny little things that I missed here. Again, do you have to grab every one of those? Yeah, probably not. But I'm just funny that way. Okay, and also remember when you've got creases like this to do plenty of tilting, or it's very easy to miss noticeable areas as opposed to just tiny little slivers here and there. And you certainly don't want that. But it's quite easy to. All right. I think we need to go one more here. All right, so now we get over to this shoulder area here, and what do we want to do about this? Okay, so I think pretty clearly, even though this gray area here is not part of the cape, we are going to color it as such. Question is for the other areas here. What do we want to do? And again, try not to stress or lose any sleep over it. However you decide to do it is not the end of the world. So I think I'm going to at least initially do this. And I'm going to leave that exposed there. I don't mind having a weird kind of angle here and a little bit sloppy. Maybe I'll do that. But these bigger areas that are like right in the middle of the cloth, those are the ones I think I want to grab and color appropriately. So here we'll do that. then that edge, you know, we're kind of skirting the edge here. This is like on an angle where that's, you know, I don't know, I think on the other side we made the other decision, but we'll go back and make that consistent. But I think I like what we're doing here on this side better. And I'm just gonna traverse down this edge here. And then you can have a nice big circle here. You can see all I got to do is touch close to that line, and I'm getting everything there, and then I can just freely go over there. We're just gonna keep doing it that way. Whoa, that's a little big. And it's 3 clicks, a little cleanup over there. Then we're down a little bit. And we can get this edge squared away pretty easily. Little zoom out. All right, and here we come down to the bottom. All right, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to traverse this bottom edge, and then we'll go back and get the bulk of the center of the cape. But we can do this with a pretty big circle here. And I'm only concerned with this area. If you see the cross, this line at the bottom here, I could put the circle right along the bottom of that. And I'm getting a ton of other stuff above that because I don't have to worry about anything else up there. I can even make it bigger. This seems a little excessive. And again, I only have to touch one of any part of the triangle, and I'm going to get the whole thing. Okay. Again, we've got some creases here, so I want to make sure. Okay. Ooh, and it looks like we got a little jaggy down here. We don't want that. So again, middle or mouse wheel button to deselect for overspray. Excuse me. We got a couple over here. And again, because we plan on painting this bottom edge, if you will, obviously the cloak's not this thick, but you know, we're dealing with a miniature here. So we could leave that overspray in place. I just generally don't like doing it. I think it's a bad habit to get into. and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this edge, and this way, if I keep it clean, then if I want to come back and put some sort of accent color along there, I can. And if I decide I don't want to, then I've got a nice clean edge and I don't have to. So this is just really kind of a light bluish purple color, not too different from his hair, so we'll have to be a little bit careful with that. We might actually want to lighten this up a little bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a new material. This is going to be Cape Exterior. Again, call it what you want. Just make sure that it's descriptive enough so that when and if you want to change that color later on, it's clear to you what it is. So let's go purple. Let's darken it up just a bit. Let's try that. Okay, and that stands out from the hair nicely. Now you can see, remember we had this shoulder part coming through here and here. But again, if we go into, even we go to object mode, again, don't worry about the orange part of that coming through. But at a distance, you're not going to see any of that. And we've got a nice kind of lines here for all of this. And again, the same here. This was anomaly, but when you're at zoom, you're not going to see any of that. So let's save that work because that took some doing. But I like what we've got here so far. And hello, Jinxie. I've got a cat visiting me. Hi. Where are we? So when it comes to kind of, again, thinking about this kind of hemline here, or if we're going to do an accent color here, I tend to like to do all the main things first, then kind of take a step back and look at what I've done. Look, what is the overall effect? How does the figure look? And then decide, okay, do I want to do some further highlights? And if the model is looking a little plain, not a lot of contrast, not a lot of detail, then yeah, I'll generally go back and do some of that sort of highlighting. If the model's got a bunch of stuff going on and he looks super cool and I don't really notice when I'm looking at it that those details aren't there, then I won't bother. Again, it comes down to why are you painting the figure? Are you doing it because you want to create some actual 3D art and you want to do it to, the nth degree? I think that's fantastic and very cool. Are you doing it because in 2 hours you're running a game and you need the figure? Okay, different story. And again, you can always take a quick pass on it and then later on revisit the figure to add some more detail, however you want to do it. That's completely up to you. But I think tonight we are going to call it a stream on that. And I hope you enjoyed the inside look at some of the super cool features, both in the model lab and in encounter scenes. Stay tuned for more news on the closed beta and the Kickstarter. These things will be happening very shortly after the new year. And we will obviously on social media and on these streams and videos, we'll be keeping you posted on when you can get involved in that if you should desire. Try to get your hands on the software and see if it's something that you want to work with. But it's going to be available, and we're looking forward to getting people in there using it. So as always, please follow the stream if you can, and hey, Jurassicles. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. How are you doing? The same thing goes for YouTube and social media. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. That helps us out a lot, getting the word out and all the progress we can make here on Twitch as well. You're coming in right. I'm not sure how long you've been here, but we're working on Dorian Storm from Critical Role. He's the air genasi, I believe, bard. You can see he's not holding an instrument, but he's kind of poised to be holding an instrument. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a suitable instrument with the figure itself. Uh, New to D&D. Well, I hope you find a good group, a good game, and learn how to play. Certainly, tons of material on Twitch for watching and learning, and kind of seeing. Back in the day, before there was any of that, it was awfully hard to kind of explain to people what role-playing games were, and people kind of look at you and you'd say, yeah, and the game never really ends, and they'd go, what? And you'd say, well, there's not a winner, there's not a loser, and they'd look at you and go, what? And you'd say, no, there's not really a game board, and they'd look at you and go, what? But now you can watch streams. Certainly, obviously, Critical Role's the top of that food chain, but there are tons of great games that are being streamed right now. So check those out. Get on social media. Twitter is a great place to learn about and ask questions. And certainly in stream chat like this, you can ask questions and learn. Unfortunately, right now we're just wrapping up the stream. I hope you got to see some good stuff, but if not, we'll be back tomorrow. Hope you join us then. And we've got a whole bunch of videos on demand here on Twitch. We also export those over to YouTube too, if that's something that works better for you. But with that, we are going to leave Mr. Dorian Storm here in a place for tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll see how my day goes, and if we can find some wings for his boots, and also some sort of mandolin type instrument, if I'm seeing that correctly on the original art, and we'll try to get that fit in here in a way that seems to work with the figure. Obviously, we'll continue painting. We've got a lot more work to do on his coat and his pants, his boots. We've got to do all the fine details. I'm looking at looks like his lips don't really need much attention, but we might just darken those a touch. Oh, you've made a homebrew race today. That's pretty cool. Uh, that's another great thing about D&D and role-playing games. Creating all sorts of new stuff that you can use and share too on things, places like D&D Beyond and Dungeon Masters Guild, and get your creations out there and have other people using them for their games. So that's fantastic. I hope you keep creating, and like I said, stop in again tomorrow or the next day, and we'll keep going on this figure, and we will hopefully have some more chats about D&D and other things in general. But for now, we're going to say goodnight, and again, thanks for watching, and we will be back tomorrow.